So, today I'm going to be talking about one of Erickson's stages during early adolescence, the group identity versus alienation stage. This stage lasts from about ages 12 to 18. One of the many milestones that happen during this age is physical maturation. When thinking about my own childhood, I remember being so happy in this stage because my friends were finally catching up to where I was. I was one of those children that started developing a lot sooner than their peers. I remember in fourth grade, that is when I received my period. So I remember it being a very awkward time because I was the only one that was experiencing that kind of growth, and I felt like I couldn't talk to my friends about it. So when it was that time of the month and I was at school, I would often hide it because I was afraid of what my friends would think if they knew I had already started it. And it didn't help that I had already started to develop breast and I was wearing sports bras. And so while everyone else in the locker room was just changing and it was so easy for them, I was the child that was kind of off in the corner trying to cover up, make sure no one saw. Or I would go into one of the bathroom stalls and change because I was embarrassed that I was developing faster than my friends were. Also, membership in peer groups is important at this time. Until about seventh grade, I floated from friend group to friend group. It was like I was that child that was kind of friends with everybody, but didn't have necessarily their own best friend. So in seventh grade, I found my very two best friends that we ended up being very close, even past high school. The group dynamic was never a leader and follower type of dynamic, since we all had different personal qualities and but all also had similar interests. We kind of just meshed together. Um, and and so we kind of all balanced each other out, and we were always doing everything together. If you saw one, you most likely saw the other two. Emotional development is also very important during this time, and I can just remember being so stressed out when it came to my emotions during this stage. This was also when I had my very first boyfriend, and while it started off great, he ended up trying to date me and one of my best friends, and that I remember that just causing so much drama, so many tears, and that feeling of, well, I want to keep my best friend, but I want to keep him too, and the dumbness of going back and forth and really never getting over that until later on. And well, till later on about mid high school. And I can just remember the days of going home and my emotions being all over the place. I didn't know really how to deal with those feelings. And my mom would be like, "Why do you keep letting this boy do this to you?" And I would just be like, "I don't know, but I can't stop." And me and my friend, one day we would be friends, one day we wouldn't. I remember there was one time in choir where the third friend of the group, well, the way we were sitting in choir, she made me and the other girl, my other best friend, sit next to each other as a way to try and help mend the relationship. But it just made things worse at the moment. We were both crying the entire class. We didn't speak to each other. It was just a very awkward thing. Both of our emotions were all over the place because we didn't know how to handle these feelings because they were new. And overall, we ended up getting through it, which is very good, and we're still friends to this day. I can also relate to how in college, as I got older and moved to college, how my drinking did increase due to also new emotions that I wasn't sure how to handle. And I was sometimes, while my drinking was more social, it was often used as a coping mechanism, which I began to notice and I slowed down on. But I realized that at this age, if I was to have a therapist, it would be very important to have someone that could give me healthy coping strategies, so that when the weekend come, it wouldn't be like, all right, let's just drink with my friends and not remember the weekend, because that's not healthy. Um, Also, I feel like a therapist would have been important during the stage when I was fighting with my friend, because it felt like nothing was ever going to be right again, and someone to just help keep me grounded other than my mom, because you always felt like, Mom, you're just saying that, but hearing it from someone else, a more neutral person in the situation, could always help as well. Lastly, another thing that happens during this stage is peer pressure because you are trying to form those friend groups. And I remember peer pressure took a very large toll on me during this stage because when I was in sixth grade, going into seventh, is when you signed up for either band, choir, orchestra, or you decide not to do either one in school. My parents were very big on me being involved, so they wanted me to either do band, choir, or orchestra. I didn't want to do either necessarily because it seemed like my friend group at the time weren't not doing anything. So I wanted to be like them. But my parents were like, "No, you have to do something." So I chose choir. And but when I got to school, my friends were like, "No, no, don't do that cuz we won't be in the same team for the classes next year." So I erased the paper and just put and marked neither for the options. And then so when school came around and I was not in choir like I was supposed to be, I can say that my parents were very upset, and that was the first time I really got grounded. I was supposed to be getting this new fancy MP3 player that was coming out, and I ended up not getting that for my birthday like I wanted. I was grounded, I couldn't do anything. So that was one of my first and somewhat last issues dealing with peer pressure, just because I was like, this is not worth it. And then I ended up loving being in choir, and that's the reason I did meet my two best friends that I spoke about earlier. So those are my reflections on Erikson's psychosocial stage of group identity versus alienation.